Okay, all right. Welcome to our regular July 20th, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board of Scotland County. I'd like to welcome everybody and call this meeting to order. What I would like to do before we do anything else is go around the room since we have new members, and let's everybody take just a second to introduce ourselves. Jim, we'll start with you if you don't mind.
Jim Smith from Wagram. Sam?
He's not paying attention.
I don't
Sam?
know if he's got his hearing aids in.
Sam Craig, Water Hill.
Thank you.
John McLean, Armberg, Scott County.
Ed Johnston, the county attorney.
Jim McMillan, Chairman of the Zoning Board.
Danny Dockery, Weinberg, County.
Daniel, glad to have you on board.
Yes, sir. Ms. Jones, the new members have been sworn, have they not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And doing our administrative duties, Donnie
Jones.
Jones, and you are just joining us for informational purposes.
Join it.
I appreciate you being here.
He is CZO too.
That's Thomas Milligan is zoning. What's your title?
Zoning and inspector.
Okay, all right,
Direct.
all right. And for the rest of you, appreciate you being here this evening. I would like to be reminded that the charge to the zoning board is that it is our duty to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the citizens of Scotland County. Let's keep that ever in mind on the issues that we have presented before us today. We do have a quorum with our new members. We are missing a couple of folks, but we're glad to have the ones here that are here. I hope everybody's had a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting, June 15th. I have a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
So,
And Sam and John, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. First order of business is a rezoning application for Bo Frizzell for a mining operation. I know he already has, is Bo here, is Bo's representative here?
I'm here to represent Mr. Kazoo.
Okay, all right,
Mr.
appreciate it.
Chairman, for housekeeping purposes, one matter, if you'd allow me to just mention this.
Keep me straight.
Well, no, this is not.
Okay.
Done. Board Member McLean, on the three items that are on here, has had a direct involvement, and may have continued involvement, but he feels it's appropriate not to participate and vote on these matters, given his involvement with them. And so he is asking that the board authorize him not to vote, if you don't mind taking a vote to do that, since he would otherwise be obligated to vote.
That sounds like a legitimate request. Do we need a motion on that?
I would take one, yeah.
Okay, have a motion that John McLean be excused from voting on these two issues, all three issues that have been brought before the board today. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Point of
Daniel
clarification,
seconded.
what does that do to our quorum?
Will you still have?
1, 2, 3, 4. Still have a
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And John, thank you for your being upfront with that. But the request for rezoning permit, rezone from residential agricultural to heavy industry, which if you have your paperwork that Donnie has presented to us, and where have I got mine? I've got mine somewhere. On Article 8, zoning districts use, mining, quarrying, sand pits, and joint extraction industries, I-2, and that is, what is S? That is for special use permit. So the initial motion, the initial request is to approve the rezoning from residential agricultural to heavy industrial. Who do we have? Would you introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. My name is Steve Edge. I'm here to represent Mr. Gazell's interest. He's the owner and operator of Edge Grading and Hauling. And he hired me to guide him through the permitting process of obtaining a land mining permit from the state of North Carolina. As part of that process, before we can file a permit, we have to have a letter from the zoning administrator of Scotland County indicating that this property is in compliance with Scotland County zoning regulations. So that's why we're here tonight. Mr. Fazell purchased this property, I believe, back last November. It is within 200 foot of his existing borrow pit or land mining operation. His intent is to utilize this property to excavate the soil and use it on construction projects, which he has been hired to do. This is a sparsely developed area. There's not a whole lot of residents. I believe there was 1 or 2 residents within 500 foot of the property boundaries. It's basically located between the Harris Road and US 501 North. In order to get to compliance, we need to rezone it from the RA to the heavy industrial, as you explained. We also need to obtain a conditional use permit because it is in a residential agricultural area. So that is the intent, for that our purpose to be here tonight.
All right. Appreciate it, Mr. Hedge. Do we have anyone here, anyone else who is prepared to speak in some aspect about this? In any way, shape, or form?
Aye.
Yes, sir. Please, stand up and you'll recognize your eyes. You look familiar to me.
Just work downtown. I
Okay.
work with Stephanie.
If you'd, stand up and introduce yourself, please.
Go ahead and remember what I have or just introduce myself.
If you have something you'd like to present,
All right.
please help yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Reverend Tony Harrington. Because of my admiration for a black man named Mr. Shaq Harris, I purchased 3.5 acres of land 38 years ago on Harris Road and moved my family to Harristown. Called such for the reason of being a hardworking, along with dedicated man. By God's grace as well as mercy, Mr. Harris received his 40 acres and a mule long ago. The community is quiet with a very low crime rate. I wouldn't be far from wrong if I said crime is non-existent. Most of us are retired and have paid taxes to Scotland County for many years. It is my opinion Harristown should remain the way it is today, based on the statement I just made, together with the historic story of Mr. Shaq Harris. Thank you.
Appreciate that. We have, and this is strictly from looking at the maps that we have. If you are familiar with where that particular mining operation is currently, there are 2 lots between the existing piece of property and the piece of property that is intended to be mined. Currently, mining is an ongoing aspect of that community. And Reverend, I appreciate what you have to say. Yeah, I totally do. My concern is whether this changes the community in any way, shape, or form. I do not see that it does, simply because there is an existing mining operation that has been ongoing for 40, 50 years. I'm not sure what it is. I have word of mouth from other landowners in the area that did not object, but that cannot go on the record because that's strictly between me and people outside this meeting. One thing I do have concern with is that if you look in the requirements for mining operation, if I can find my paperwork here, there, yes. If you will look, if you have your new zoning ordinances, 11.61, mining, quarrying, sand pits, and mineral extraction. Under section 11.61.4, and it's somewhere on down there that doesn't quite line up with the way this is numbered, but on page 11-49, number 4, use separation. This is our current zoning ordinance. The edges of any pit where a mining operation is taking place, or any equipment used in the processing of rock and gravel, any asphalt plant, or other industrial uses operated in conjunction with the mine or quarry shall be located at least 300 feet from the property line. This property line is a little over 400 feet across either end. So by our zoning ordinances, we will not be able to grant your permit. And that's the way I read the ordinance. Mr. County Attorney, is that the way that you read it?
Well, I agree with you on that, and then there's also, a requirement here that, and I guess we're talking about both of these at one time, the rezoning request and the special use permit, but one of the requirements in this ordinance, and we're all getting used to this new ordinance.
Yes.
Mr. Edge, is that a letter or other certification of approval must be submitted from the North Carolina Department of Transportation as to the safety and design of access or entrance onto a state-maintained road. And then also under Roman numeral 11, the applicant may submit a completed application as required by the state of North Carolina for a mining permit. And do we have either of those?
That's-
So we have the
Yeah, we have the
application,
permit. Yeah, the application for permit.
but we don't have the letter from the Department of Transportation. Or do we?
I was not made aware of that requirement.
Well, please don't jump on us too hard. We are still, like Ed said, we are still getting used to this new
Yeah,
zoning
well,
ordinance.
since it says must be submitted, it's really not optional.
Yes.
So it may be that some additional information needs to be collected to bring your application into conformity with it. So we do have the mining permit application, but we don't have the
Yeah.
Department of Transportation.
And as far as the 300 feet, I'm not sure where we are with that.
So,
I'd like to do a little more research on it, but I think probably what we need to do is table these requests until our next meeting, until you can do your Department of Transportation letter of, what's it called? Letter of compliance. I think that's what it was.
A letter or other certification of approval must be submitted from the North Carolina Department of Transportation as to the safety and design of the access or entrance onto a state-maintained road. Give you enough time to get everything together? If we could have
should,
orchestrated.
should definitely get that, maybe we'll go that tomorrow. But as to the other, the 300 foot setback, I don't know, be quite perhaps that.
Your section, you know.
That's where you just read what you read.
Further down.
Yeah, follow down the same page.
I think I got that out of the thing.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah. You know, without, if nothing else comes up that disproves what we have here, I'm not sure that we'll be able to approve this. Of course, you do have the right to ask for a variance or appeal, but these are the current ordinance that we do have, and we're bound by them. You know, whether we like it or we don't like it or whatever, it's printed on paper, it's the law.
That 300 feet is from the.
Boundary.
Right, so,
Property boundary.
so with the 11 acres that they have, So if they don't use all 11 acres for the mining, and then it says from the edges of any pit where mining operation is taking place and any equipment is used in the processing of rock and gravel. So from the edge of where they have the equipment to the property lines, if those lines fall within 300 feet, then that should be applicable if they don't totally use all 11 acres.
We have a boundary.
And then, right, and then you shrink that 11 acres, and then now you say, instead of 11 acres, we're gonna use the inside 7 or 6 acres. And then now the boundary for the equipment is here, and then it measures 300 feet from the property line.
Was this 400 feet width on it? Is
That's where I said,
Yes,
400.
feet. So you would
Mr.
possibly,
Surveyor, that's 400 feet, isn't it?
Yep.
If you look on the west side,
So they still fall into.
so anywhere about it, they're gonna be closer than 300 feet.
They're gonna have a ditch down the middle of the only available land.
So, right now, it looks like Mr. Patel may have a piece of property that he might not be able to do anything on.
given that wording.
Pardon?
I said, given that wording, it's.
Given that wording. But, do I have a motion to table, I recommend we table this, items, rezoning application 50522 and 50622 until our next meeting pending further investigation. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Edge, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry we didn't have better news for you tonight.
That's okay. Have a good evening.
Um, It is here somewhere.
So the property is, the property that's around it, are they within 300 feet? Or are they within, out of the 300 feet? Like these individuals that have houses and have properties, based upon his 11 acres, are those 11 acres from their property line? Is that
Yeah,
300
on the
feet?
north side, if he put any mining, all right, let's just suppose that the property was 650 feet,
Right.
which would allow him to do 50 feet of mining. Or say, well, I don't know.
We need.
As it stands now, it's gonna be within, within 300 feet of
The
the north
property.
property and the south property. Folks on the south property told me the other day, they didn't care if you mined or not. But as far as the equipment, if you put a piece of equipment on that property, it's gonna be 200 feet from the northern boundary or 200 feet from the southern boundary, and you got owners, different owners on both sides.
Right.
So according to what our new ordinances say, it wouldn't be compliant anywhere in April form.
Right. So if they cut the land where if they like shifted, like I said, shifted the land instead of putting the equipment here and then moving in.
It's not wide enough.
It's not wide enough.
It's only 400 feet across.
Right.
Yeah, the only way
Any
you'd
way
be
you do
able to put equipment on there is if you bought the two lots above that, one which is owned by a church and one which is privately owned. And that would, in essence, tie him into his existing lot.
Right.
And at that point, he could put equipment within 300 feet of the southern boundary. But he would have to buy those two lots between the new lot and the existing lot.
Or the
And that's,
Newton South, the
yeah. And I guarantee you, Rick Shannon ain't selling that land. Okay, our third item is request for special use permit, place family cemetery on the property. Property is located 19700 Indian Reservation Road, Wagram. I've looked online and looked at this piece, and I do see it is an odd shaped east looks as if it might have been two lots combined into one. But my question, and I haven't been able to find the answer anywhere, and searching cemeteries on any of our ordinances, is whether or not you can have a cemetery in a property that has a residence on it. And the northeastern part of this property, according to the map, does have a manufactured home. So having said that, we have someone here represent the owners of that property with request. Would you stand and introduce yourself?
My name's Dwayne Haynes, my brother Dennis Haynes.
Glad to have you all here.
Thank you.
From what I see, if you look there, the way this property's done like this, is there not a manufactured home on this property right there?
Yeah, on the other side of the dirt.
Right.
Right.
But that's all one lot, and that single lot is a single deed number, property ID number, and that entire lot's RA, which is supposed to be fine for use for a family cemetery. In everything that I've read, someone else may have read something else, but my question is whether or not you can have a family cemetery on a property that has a residential structure on it. And I can't find anything in our current ordinances or the North Carolina, what's the other one?
Cemetery, yeah.
Yeah, the North Carolina Cemetery Act that specifically addresses that question.
100 feet from an existing dwelling?
Yes,
With,
Yeah.
with the family cemetery, the 11.22.4, after, talking with Mr. Patterson, they're not, as long as they're 100 foot from the dwelling, they can be on the same property. But if it is a, independent or religious, like church cemetery, it has to be on its own parcel.
okay. So as a family
As long as
unit, that sounds like it meets compliance.
a family cemetery could be on the same property, as long as it's 100 foot from water, any water bodies, and 100 foot from any dwellings.
And give me that number again, I think you,
It's,
1122 for item 7. So Sam, you can't be buried there.
I apologize, I didn't read far enough on this.
Is the red box on the map that we have 100 by 200, is that roughly what that is?
That was just an example of the,
That's roughly where it's going?
now this was just an example to show how it's supposed to be set up, but the map that, Mr. McLean provided,
No, I was talking about what, the proposed cemetery on here, is it gonna be 100 by 200? According
yeah,
to,
when they downsize it, it can be up to 100 by 200.
well,
They downsize it to what, probably 90 by 60, something like
90 by
that,
60 is what it's gonna be.
something like that. According to this, the preliminary map we received from the surveyor.
Okay,
Seven.
and I assume you're not anticipating filling that up anytime soon.
No, I don't even have enough family members.
Well, considering that particular item, I guess the question is this more than 200 feet? Is that what you said, away from the 100 feet? 100 feet?
from the wetlands.
And I certainly think that just from looking at that, that's certainly more than 100 feet away from the residence that's there.
It,
And there's an easy way to figure that out.
it said existing dwellings, and there is one behind it, but it's, enough far enough away as well.
And have you already taken measurements on these? So everything's copacetic with that. All right,
So they're in conformity with all the requirements under the new ordinance.
Um,
Assuming you get the survey.
Yes, one or two things, he understands he's got to have we know the supply and demand right now is not in, but as long as he has a contract or bill of sale where he's purchased the fence for the property, that's acceptable. And, he has it named, so he's met all that. And according to the survey and stuff, he's meeting all the setbacks and everything he have to. He's got to be 20 foot property line, and then the cemetery line has to be 20 foot from the graveside.
So the technical aspects, everything's been met. And from the ordinance aspect, everything looks good. John, do you have anything you'd like to say?
This is gonna be a real close location of it. If it moves, it only moves a couple of feet. But we verified that one house, and I'll double check it all again just to be sure, but this is, pretty close.
Okay.
It's not 100% official, but that's gonna be real close.
What's gonna be close to?
Where I got shown on the plat.
Oh, close to where, okay.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
To approve, motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is passed. John, will approve
Thank
that. And, you know your contact, and she can take care of it. Okay.
Thank y'all.
Mr. Johnson, we'll see you. All right, Mr. Johnson. Now, do they have to go to the commissioners meeting on this?
We should be office first.
Thank you.
Which I mean, which means up there.
Sorry?
Which means I better not miss the next.
Oh, and there it is. What's that again?
I'll let you know.
Oh. Hey, thanks, Bob.
Is any old business needs to be discussed tonight? Any new business? Donnie, if you would just update us, if you have any idea at all, has there been any progress on the land use plan? Has anybody said word one about it? Has there been anything said about compiling the ordinances under a single format and putting them all in a standardized online access for everybody, searchable database?
No, but I can check on that. I know it's, the ordinance is there except for Article 6 I just found out about today, but it was adopted, so I'll get that printed.
Okay.
But you wanted a searchable database?
Well, what we'd asked for and what the county commissioners and county managers said was that they would make sure that the multiple fonts and font sizes and everything that we currently have that make up the ordinances, they would put it in a single font, formatted completely the same all the way throughout, and make it available online. And preferably, and I did not mention this to them, I don't think anybody did, but if you go on PDF or anything, any other multiple page form, up at the top, there's a little magnifying glass, and you can do a search for a word. And that's the type of thing that I think the county residents need to have. If they have questions, they go in, put in cemetery, and it'll bring up every page within that ordinance that has the word cemetery on it. Now, if you put in the word mining, it's gonna look up determining. It'll have that in there as well as the word mining. But that would be a big help for anyone that wants to do a research before they, ask for a permit.
Actually, that's how I did. When I was looking at
That-
this,
yeah,
I
that's-
searched cemetery and hit every word in that.
Or you with them.
Yeah, quarry would be, yeah. Yeah, if you don't mind checking on that.
And also the updated map, where are we with that?
As far as I know, that's done, isn't it?
Yes.
Is
the
it
map.
online?
It's available online, correct?
Is it?
I hadn't looked.
I think Brooks said it was ready and available.
That's a piece of work.
The zoning map you're referring to?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. I've been wanting one for years.
Well, if there's no further business, no further discussion, do I have a motion to adjourn? You can make that motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion to, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. We are adjourned till the next meeting.
We didn't look like one to adjourn.
Yeah.
I was trying to talk it.